I just finished replaying The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo Switch. So today I'm going to be giving my full spoiler-free review of the game. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. I played Ocarina of Time on Nintendo Switch through Nintendo Switch Online, and I played roughly 25 hours or so over the course of about 2 weeks. I wasn't trying to 100% the game. I really wanted to be able to get through the entire game without looking anything up. And when I finished the game, I had about 15 hearts, 45 of the 100 gold Skulltula, 3 of the 4 glass bottles, and I was missing 4 of the optional items. I did have 3 specific things that I needed to look up in order to progress in the game, but I'll talk about all 3 of those later. And with all of that out of the way, let's get started with the positive. This game has some really great dungeons. Depending on how you count them, it could have anywhere from 8 to 12 dungeons. And I think all of the main dungeons are very good. For the most part, the dungeons challenge you to use the items and the different tools that are available to you and your knowledge of the world to approach obstacles in a different way and experiment in order to overcome challenges. They do a good job of fitting the different dungeons into the story and the lore itself. In some Zelda games, it doesn't really make sense why you go to an area and there's like a giant dungeon just waiting to be explored, but in this one it kind of does. Another really big positive that I need to mention is the story and the characters. This was huge. This is huge for Zelda because this is the first time that we've seen a Zelda game. In 1998, this was the first time that we had ever seen a Zelda game in 3D. And so this game was very influential in defining how we still view those same characters to this day. And I think that this version of Link is the most iconic Link that we've ever gotten. Also, the characters that surround Link in this game have more than their time to shine as well. The characters are more expressive than ever, even though most of them have very basic animations where they typically just do one thing over and over again. Another thing that I think the game does very well is presenting you with lots of optional side stuff that make going and exploring the world very fun. It's a lot of fun to go explore in the Lost Woods and talk to the Skull Kid and play some music with him, and then he rewards you with like a bigger, like a wallet upgrade or something. And I also think that not knowing what you're gonna get for specific tasks is what add to the excitement as well. And while all of the side content is very rewarding and it feels significant, you can also completely play the game without engaging in a lot of the side stuff, and you're not gonna feel like you are underleveled or falling behind. The natural progression of the game makes you get stronger as you go so that you don't feel like you're too terribly far behind if you're missing out on some side stuff. But I do want to reiterate that the side stuff is fun. Getting new gear, whether it's from a side mission or a random quest line, or even in the main quest, in a dungeon, out of a dungeon, getting new gear was always exciting, and being able to have that feeling of, oh, I just got this new ability, I wonder what I'm going to be able to do with this. Or even saying, I just got this new ability, I should go back to such and such place because now I should be able to do this, this, and this while I'm there. And while we're talking about items and side quests, let's move right along into the mixed. Sometimes, whether it's in a side quest or a main quest, you will get to a point where you need to give an item to another character, and you can do everything correctly. You can be right next to the person and locked on and have the item equipped and try to give it to them, and it doesn't always register that that person is supposed to respond. Part of this is just the quirks of the N64 and wanting you to kind of be in a more specific spot and not necessarily clarifying where that spot is. One specific time that happened to me was in the Lost Woods. I went there and was supposed to give an item to a girl for a side quest, and I went up to her, I had the item equipped, I locked onto her, and I hit the item button, and it just said like, oh, it looks like this doesn't do anything here. And so I went on my way thinking that I was actually supposed to give that item to somebody else. Later, I couldn't figure out who to give it to, and I looked it up, and I was supposed to give it to that girl. I was just standing like too far to the left or something. And so that kind of stuff is a little bit annoying, but I can excuse that because this is a 27-year-old video game. The next mixed for me is that I think the game has a currency problem in that there's a lot of money to go around, but there's not really much to actually spend rupees on. I was constantly collecting more and more rupees. I got the adult wallet pretty early in the game, which lets you hold 200 rupees instead of 99 rupees, and I maxed that out, and I kept finding more and more rupees. But I had nothing to spend them on because all of your items and stuff would just naturally be refilled through just playing the game. The reason that's in mixed for me and not negative is I know that there is a bigger wallet than the adult wallet that I think lets you hold up to 999 rupees. So part of it might have just been that I didn't have a big enough wallet, but it was a little bit disappointing to open up a chest and just find out that it's rupees that are now basically just going to disappear because my wallet is full. The final mixed for me is that Navi doesn't seem to know when to help you and when to shut the hell up. I swear, she'll like interrupt you to tell you something like really obvious, like over and over and over again. But then when you actually need help, she'll tell you something like super vague, or she'll tell you something that's like not helpful at all. Before I give my negatives, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the negative part of the review, and I really don't have a lot to say here. The first and most noticeable one is that the Nintendo Switch Online controls don't translate very well to the Switch Pro controller. This kind of resulted in the C buttons being mapped to the right stick, but you could also hit the right bumper to make the face buttons become the C buttons, which would get kind of confusing when you're trying to like play songs and stuff. I do think that this would be better with the N64 style controller that they released for Switch, so I would imagine that the controls would make a lot more sense playing with that controller. The next one is a little bit more specific. After the water temple, the game doesn't do a good job of telling you what to do. And if you ask Navi what to do, she'll kind of just give you a non-answer, which I talked about earlier. And if you go and talk to one of your other friends, they don't really give you much info either. I was fortunate in that I was just kind of wandering around and stumbled upon the next thing that you were supposed to do, but I could have gotten pretty stuck right there if I wasn't just kind of wandering. The next negative for me is the 3 mini dungeons, not the introduction dungeons that you do in the opening couple hours of the game. The actual like mini like interstitial dungeons that you do between the full-fledged dungeons later on. For the most part, they just seem kind of like filler to me. And most of them only exist to make you do one specific thing like over and over again. Another one is that there's a part in the story where you go to Kikoriko Village and something happens while you're there and you need to go investigate it. And if you ask Navi about it, she'll just say, let's go over there, let's go over there, let's go over there, let's go check it out, let's go look at the thing, look. But nothing in the game actually tells you that there's a whole nother step that you need to do there before you can actually access any of that stuff. That probably really didn't make much sense because I'm trying to be vague, but if you want to know more specifically what I'm talking about, ask me in the comments and I will answer more directly. And then the last negative for me, which I would probably call this the low point of the entire game, is a forced stealth section that happens when you go into the desert area. This part is frustrating for me because the stealth isn't particularly good and it has you doing this. You're searching for these items in this area, but it doesn't really seem like it knows what it wants this area to be. You find keys in chests that make me think that it's supposed to be a dungeon, but you're not actually given any kind of map or anything. And the stealth gets really frustrating because the enemies will reappear anytime you enter a room, and all of the rooms and doorways kind of look the same, so you end up just wandering around in circles a lot, and I just don't find that particularly fun. Guys, that's all that I have to say about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. In the comment section, please let me know what you think about this game. Until next time, the best way to keep up with me is on Twitter and on Instagram at James_Solar and on Blue Sky at jamessolar.bsky.social. Thanks, guys.